Hey guys, welcome to the show. Today's episode is going to be a departure from what I normally talk about because Josh Kaye, who has been working with me on this show since the very beginning, has written a book called Toxic: A Comprehensive Guide to a Healthier Home. And I think you're going to be really surprised by some of the things he says and some of his recommendations. It's a very eye-opening book. I actually just from living in LA since 1993, I've been very much on board with what he says in this book, and we're going to get into a lot of that. So, welcome, Josh Kaye.
Thanks for having me, Beckett.
It's really, as you said before, it's just very strange that we're doing an episode together since we work together. Uh, but I'm just so glad to have you finally on. Well, you've been on a couple live Q&As, right?
Yeah, I've popped in here and there.
You've popped in here and there, so people probably recognize you. Uh, but I want to talk about your book because it's Toxic: A Comprehensive Guide to a Healthier Home. The big question to me is because I've had, and as I mentioned in the intro, I over the years since I moved to LA, just by being in LA, I gradually, and being around like-minded people, I gradually became more and more aware of things like toxic things in your home, just like, different things, organic food, et cetera, et cetera. So, but this book is so great because not only is it's very readable, and it's not long, and it just gets to the point, and it's kind of a intro guide to really what to do in your home, how to start. But how did you even get interested in this subject to begin with?
Oh, well, I started taking my health seriously in like 2018. You were sort of fundamental in that. Um, I won't say exactly how, but I just started like realizing that I needed to be getting in shape and that I needed to start before it was too late. And I say too late, it's never too late, but that sort of propelled me down a road of, like you're saying, like my eyes being opened to various different issues. And it's just something that I've been really passionate about over the past 6 years. So I'm like constantly researching different things in the health space, I guess you would say, and whether that's fitness or diet or avoiding toxins and stuff like this. And it just kind of came to me one day because I had a lot of people continually asking me for my advice when it came to health related stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, I'm sick with this. Like, what supplements should I be taking? Or I'm dealing with this issue. What is going on? Like, what are your thoughts? And I felt like I needed to compile that information in some way because I just felt like the book basically came about because I felt like nobody had really put it out there that there are so many things in your house that are negatively affecting your home. And it's
and your
something
and
that,
your health as well.
yeah, and it's something that I think you and I are aware of on a certain level, but going to friends or family, going to their houses and seeing really harsh chemicals and synthetic fabrics and suspicious cookware, things like this. It just kind of made me realize that I needed to write something that would kind of be a primer for those people that I could give to them and be like, hey, look, this is a great starting point. And I think once you get into this, you'll start to realize a bunch of things. But yeah, I just wanted to keep it simple. I really wrote the book like for my family, and I hope that it benefits more than just them. But
How have they received it?
They like it. I mean, it's funny because most of the praise is like, "Oh, you wrote a book. Wow." Um, but yeah, most of my family has been reading it, and everybody that has read it has told me that it's great, that they're telling their friends to buy it. And while that's awesome, I just really want it to be useful and helpful to people. That's my main thing. So I
Yeah.
hope that the information inside is easy to digest and it brings up concepts that people are kind of unfamiliar with that will be beneficial to them, you know?
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's get into the book. Uh, let's start with the biggest. I think the first chapter is on water. Water is very important. So, can you just give us sort of what are the different kind of dangers with different waters, and what is your recommendation of how humans should drink, or what water we should drink, or what kind of filters we should have, or whatever? Like, I start with water.
Yeah, so the main issue with water is the tap water supply, and it's going to be different all across the United States. I'm going to just focus on the United States, but there's a lot of different chemicals in the water that shouldn't be there and that are added in the water treatment plants. Some of these are testosterone, estrogen, birth control, fluoride, which eats away and calcifies your pineal gland, which is a part of your brain that's right here. And there's many other things. If you go to a website, mytapwater.org, it'll show you a report of all of the different chemicals that are in your water. And chlorine is another one that's in there that it all of these chemicals are unnecessary. Like they're meant to be like cleaning agents, I think most of the time, but I don't know why testosterone and estrogen would be on the list in that case, or birth control. So the whole water thing is ideally you want to be drinking water as purely as you can find it, which, you know, a couple hundred years ago was like from a spring or the rain or something,
Or yeah, a
or a
well or something.
well. And now not only do you have these chemicals, but you have them going through pipes, a lot of which are old and are lined with copper or lead. And then you also have the bottling practices, like plastic bottles, for example, that are just leaching microplastic into the water. So if you're not careful with the quality of the water that you drink, you're going to be ingesting a chemical cocktail that is going to be negatively affecting many different aspects of your health. And water is water is one of the best ways that your body detoxes itself from environmental toxins. So if the water that you're putting into your body is poor quality or poisonous, it's not going to be helping you in that area. It's not going to be helping your internal organs function like they should. So the whole water chapter is basically focusing on that and kind of shedding light on some of that. And the filtration is absolutely necessary if you're going to be drinking water from your own home. If somebody owns their own home, they can get like a whole house filtration system
Hmm.
that would filter all the water from one point. But if you don't own your home or if you're renting, then you need to at least have some kind of clean drinking water supply. And you can use gravity filters, you can use reverse osmosis filters, you can use distillers. There are a ton of different filtration methods that you can use, but they each sort of have their pros and cons, whether that's price or how much water they're able to filter or how well they're able to filter the water. Like we have a reverse osmosis filter upstairs in the kitchen that's cheap, and I don't trust it to do a great job. So I also filter that through a different gravity filter before I drink it.
Double filters.
Yeah.
And also you cook with that water as well, right? If you're making pasta or whatever, you cook with that filtered water rather than tap water.
Yeah. I mean, anything that, if you're cooking with it or if you're using it in cleaning solutions or if you're showering in it, you need to be careful of what's in the water. I have a shower filter. I don't cook with tap water, and I don't cook with tap water for the same reasons I don't drink it. I don't want the chemical ending up in my body. And thinking that you're just going to boil away something like fluoride or testosterone is not true.
Well, I know. Well, also the chlorine you mentioned. Whenever I make pasta, I mean, I still make pasta in tap water just because I don't have a filtration system. I just buy big plastic gallons of water from Whole Foods, spring water. But I'll eventually get to that. But when I make pasta and I fill up the pan with tap water or the pot with tap water, it literally smells like bleach. It's like the most overwhelming scent of bleach. And I'm like, this cannot be good.
Yeah.
Just drinking bleach. Um, like Donald Trump does, I guess. No, I'm kidding. Okay, so all right, that's water. And then you get into more detail on that in your chapter on water. So we're gonna just move on to this is an interesting thing is your next chapter is about air, and you talk about different things like fragrances, soaps, plugins like Glade plugins, scented candles, room sprays, cologne, and even cleaning products. So just give us kind of a brief overview of why these things are bad for us.
Yeah. So all of those kinds of products are made with synthetic fragrances, which are made from petroleum byproducts, which is oil. And it's all bad for you to be breathing in. um, you would be much better off using essential oils or like a potpourri or something like that that you make yourself. The cologne, the Glade plugins, Febreze, Axe body spray, scented candles, all of these things release, they're called VOCs. They're volatile organic compounds that basically they get into your body and they disrupt your hormonal functions. And that's a huge issue for people of all ages having problems with their hormones. That can affect, your appetite, weight loss, your fitness level, how you feel energy wise in old age, all this stuff. And if you're just bringing all of those toxic fumes into your house and spraying down all your surfaces in your rooms with these chemical, products, you're basically just asking for problems internally in your body. So there's many, many products. I would say most products use synthetic fragrances, and it's basically it's just poison, you
Yeah.
know?
And so for example, if I wanted to use Windex to clean my mirror, what would I use instead of Windex?
Well, Windex, I don't know if it, okay, here's an interesting thing. So Windex, I was gonna say I don't know if it has a fragrance, but even the ones that don't have a fragrance have a fragrance that masks the smell of the chemicals. You know what
Mhm.
I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like it doesn't smell super strong like chemicals because there is a fragrance there. But an alternative would be a vinegar, a distilled white vinegar and water solution where you have, I think you would, for windows, you would want more vinegar than water.
Mhm.
I'm forgetting the ratio. I think it's probably 2 to 1. But you can use distilled white vinegar to clean down every surface in your house. You can make a cleaning solution out of Castile soap and water, and it'll work just as well as 409 or Clorox or any of this stuff. So that's another reason why I wanted to write this book, because I feel like, my whole life, you just go into the grocery store or the hardware store or whatever, and you just assume that the things that are for sale are good. Like
Mhm.
they are being regulated, they're safe to use. But the reality is that they're not. Most of them are not. Even the ones that have like green packaging with little leaves on it, so they look healthy, are made by the same people with the same ingredients most of the time. But if you go back in time, things like distilled white vinegar or really simple soap, people have been cleaning their homes and their bodies and themselves with very simple, non-toxic materials for hundreds of years. And those things work just as well. So I tell people a lot of times, you know, when you go into a store and you see like a new cleaning product or whatever, maybe it's just that it's in a new kind of can, like a spray instead of like a gun spray or whatever. They're only changing like little things to keep you interested in it. And it's really just a reworking of something that already worked. Like 409 is like distilled white vinegar and water is just as effective. And one of them is going to cause you problems and one of them is not. So going back to simpler, more simple, like basic ingredients that are natural for the most part is kind of what I just recommend everybody try to figure out.
Yeah, and I want to talk about laundry detergent because I think I turned you onto this because you were here one day and I smelled this like Tide scent from your t-shirt. And
Yeah,
I was
okay,
like, are you
let me just preface this. This was how many years ago?
this is a long time ago, but I was like, what are you washing your clothes in? And then I kind of woke you up to that. And because first of all, liquid detergent not only is that I go to when I go to grocery stores and I see the detergent aisle, there's like 5,000 different heavy plastic bottles of liquid detergent, and they're all scented. They all have toxic, poisonous stuff in them. And number one, the plastic bottle is completely unnecessary. It's just a waste of throwing plastic into the ocean, basically. Secondly, the liquid is completely unnecessary, and to keep a product in a liquid form takes other chemicals to keep it in that state. So you're just adding unnecessary. So I always say just use dry powder detergent. Like I use Whole Foods unscented dry powder detergent. And I mean, I'm sure you use something more extreme, but and I and but there's absolutely no reason to buy a giant jug of like this sloppy liquid detergent that is completely poisonous, and it leaves a scent on your clothes which absorbs into your body when you're wearing your clothes. So it's just bad all around. But so what do you say to that?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're exactly right. These liquid detergents are just toxic sludge, in my opinion. Um, what I use is a mixture of baking soda, washing soda, borax, and
Wait, what's
I
washing soda?
it's basically if you put baking soda in the oven and you bake it, it like dries it out more and makes it more of a finer, like,
Powder.
yeah, you can buy it. It's made by, I have like a 2 pound box of it or something like that. Um, I buy all of these in bulk, and the last ingredient is a Castile soap bar that I grate with a cheese grater.
You're
And
I love how dedicated you are to this.
well, I just want to say, like, you mentioned that it was extreme a minute ago, but really it's like I'm buying this stuff in bulk. I've made probably I've made probably 4 gallons, like mason jar gallons of this stuff since I bought it, which was over a year and a half ago. I have a 1 year old child who, for the past year, has been destroying every article of clothing that he owns, like every day. So I've been doing laundry constantly. And this, I bought, a 2 pound box of borax, a 2 pound box of baking soda, a 2 pound box of washing soda, and like 4 Castile bars, which has lasted me over a year and a half. And each one of the like half-gallon mixtures that I make lasts me 6 months. And so, like, yes, it may seem extreme to be making it myself, but the reality is it's significantly cheaper. It's not toxic, and it is just as effective, and it lasts forever. So that's kind of what I'm just trying to tell people is
Yeah.
you can go to the store, and because of convenience or because of commercials or whatever, you can see this shiny new product on the shelves and think that, oh, this is going to work better for me or this is going to be easier for me. But if you just take like 30 minutes every 6 months to make a jar of laundry detergent, it probably costs me like $5 for that much laundry detergent and it lasts me that long. So it's just simpler, it's just as effective, and I don't have to worry about wearing like poison on me all day.
Yeah. And what are your thoughts on dryer sheets? I mean, I know what your thoughts are, but what are they?
Yeah, so they have a lot of the same fragrance and volatile organic compounds and preservatives and human carcinogens in them that laundry detergent and like scented candles, room sprays, fabric sprays have. And imagine my shock when you find out that using a 100% wool dryer ball that you can get for next to nothing works just as well and it lasts you forever. And then if you absolutely must have some kind of scent in your dried laundry, you can just drop a couple drops of like a lavender essential oil on it and it works incredible. And it's again, it's just like you don't have to be constantly buying this stuff all the time. Like, oh, we're out of dryer sheets again. When you just buy 3 dryer balls and they last you 4 years, you know?
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about lighting. So it's funny because I just do I have oh I just had it the the other day obviously we're now you know we're now commanded by the powers that be to buy LED bulbs. But it's funny because the other day I went on to Amazon to try to find incandescent bulbs, and I I looked at the package, I read the description, it said incandescent bulbs. In the description, it said incandescent. They arrive and it says LED bulbs. I'm
Yeah.
like, so talk about what are the problems with LED bulbs and with that kind of lighting.
Yeah. So incandescent and halogen is more of like a chemistry reaction or like a electrical reaction that you're actually seeing. Like it's heating up a coil and it's producing a source of light. Whereas the LED is just like a little bulb. And the reason why I think they say they want us to buy LED bulbs because they're power saving and they're less dangerous. Like when I dropped an incandescent bulb a week ago and it just absolutely exploded everywhere. So I do understand that those antiquated bulbs are a bit more dangerous, I guess, if they're in the hands of a child. But the LED bulbs, they have a flicker to them that you almost can't see with your naked eye. And this will be something that anybody with a smartphone can do. But if you have a smartphone and you have an LED bulb in your house, go to your camera and film the LED bulb in slow motion with the slow motion feature of your camera, and then watch that video back, and you'll see the bulb strobing like this.
And why is that bad?
Well, it's like the deer in the headlights kind of thing. Or like if you ever go into some place where there's like strobing lights, or maybe you're watching a movie where there's like strobing lights and everything, it's upsetting to your eyes and to your brain. It's not natural. It's extremely unnatural. So if you're sitting in that environment all day, you're unnecessarily stressing yourself out. You need to be like, the sun is not strobing. The sunlight, the light of a candle, the light of an incandescent bulb, they're not strobing. They're just very calm, soothing, relaxing, warm light. But if you have a super bright white LED bulb that is brighter white than natural, like the sun, is like golden rays, right? If you're sitting in a bright white LED that's also strobing on you, you're just asking for your brain to be downloading that as like anxiety, like something's going wrong.
And also, does it affect your sleep?
Yeah. So the strobing, I would say that the strobing is just something you want to avoid entirely. There are LED bulbs that don't strobe. And I think I gave you a red LED bulb that
Yeah.
is good to use at nighttime, like when you're winding down, when the sun's gone down. That LED bulb has less than 0.001% flicker. So if you were to do the slow motion test to it, you wouldn't see anything. So there are LED bulbs that are good. I'm not trying to demonize them as a whole, but most cheap LED bulbs are not great in that flickering department. But messing with your sleep, we all have a circadian rhythm, and what that basically entails is, if you were to go back in time without light bulbs, when the sun comes up, you would, and it lit up your bedroom, you would naturally wake up to that. When the sun was at high noon and its brightest, you would naturally understand that you're in the middle of the day. And when the sun is going down, you would start to get sleepy and start winding down. And then when the sun is set fully and it's nighttime, it's time to go to bed. You can't get any more work done. But because of modern advancements in lighting, like light bulbs, for example, you can now work around the clock if you want. Like you don't have to go to sleep because you can't see anymore. So if your house is full of super bright white LED bulbs, or even, blue light dominant, so like more white than warm, and you have those on at night, like when the sun goes down or before bed, it's going to be tricking your brain into thinking like, oh, it's noon.
Yeah.
Like I'm not tired. I don't need to go to bed now because it's the middle of the day. And what you really need is a warm source of light, ideally something that's more orange,
Hmm.
darker red. These kind of lights to use when the sun goes down, even a candle, you know, that is not going to it's not going to mess with your brain when the sun is down. Like
So it's not a
you
good idea to bring your laptop into bed and watch stuff on it before you go to bed.
No, it's not a good idea to be doing that. There are fortunately settings and filters that you can use to change the color of your laptop screen. I have one on my computer.
Yeah, you
Um,
put one on mine too. I like it.
yeah, so I'm not trying to say like don't ever look at screens, don't use light bulbs or anything like that. There's just a lot of things that you don't think about that goes into it that's affecting you. And if you're just blasting yourself with your blue light phone screen before bed or your computer or bright white lighting in your bathroom or your bedroom, and you're wondering why you're not getting a good night's sleep, that's probably something that you need to address.
So for like for you, do you not watch like even in the living room or wherever, do you not watch kind of movies or whatever late at night because of the light?
I mean, I'm not going to say I don't. We have a small child, so we don't really stay up past when he goes to bed because we're tired, but there are times that we watch TV at night. I'm not saying that's, you know, really unhealthy or it's going to kill you or anything, but you need to be limiting that kind of exposure as much as possible. That's kind of what the book is about, is like don't try to change everything at once. Like if there's one issue that you're having, or there's one issue in your home that you know needs to be addressed, just start with one thing. And then once you have that under control, you can move on to something else. I don't want to tell people like, hey, everything in your home is trying to kill you. Everything in the world is trying to kill you. I don't want to be that like doom and gloom preacher type.
Yeah.
But there are things that, like for instance, when we moved into this house, there were bright white LED bulbs everywhere. And so I just switched them all out. So even at night, if I'm in this room and I have this light on above me, it's pretty orange,
Yeah.
you know?
I don't even know where to find incandescent bulbs anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I had to sort of go off the beaten path to find some, and it's unfortunate that they have been sort of banned.
I know. I
But
think Kunst Hardware in West Hollywood has still has incandescent bulbs.
yeah,
You-
that's what I was gonna say is if you go into like a local hardware store and you see some, just buy them because you probably won't see them again.
I know. They're vanishing. Okay, so let's talk about, let's see, let's talk about clothing and we'll get back to this other subject. But clothing is, we both have worked in the clothing business. As you know, we Doodle Zone was a brand that we worked on, and there's so much, and you have done so much production and clothing in downtown Los Angeles. Just tell people what goes on when you're buying like a 100% cotton t-shirt. What goes on in these factories, a lot of clothing factories, because I'll just give one example before you start. I remember years ago, this was like, I don't know, 25 years ago, 20 years ago, I was at Brooks Brothers. It was just, they were the first, I think they were the first ones to come out with the dress shirts that don't wrinkle.
Okay.
And the guy was telling me how great it was, how they don't wrinkle. And I said, well, what kind of chemicals do they use to make this not wrinkle? And what about the people who are, in some other country making like putting these shirts in this kind of wash? Like what's happening to them with these chemicals? And the guy was just he was so confused, he didn't know what to say. But talk about what goes on with clothing and what we should try to avoid.
Yeah, so the clothing manufacturing industry is very interesting. It's something that I feel like people don't really have an idea about unless they've been in it. Basically, you have many different facilities cutting, dyeing, weaving, sewing all of these garments. And the dyeing process is extremely toxic. I personally know one guy who owned a dye house that passed away due to health complications. And I can only imagine that it was because he worked in those conditions for 30 years. every single one I would walk into, you would immediately like smell and like taste the chemicals in the air. And everybody working inside would have something over their face or their nose because it was just extremely toxic, caustic in there. And I think while you're not necessarily going to be subjected to that high of a level of chemical, it is important to be aware that that is what is going into it when you're getting like a colorful dyed shirt, for example. Now, the main thing that I think is important with clothing is the
By the way,
material.
for clothing, just because we've talked about this, but for clothing, and a lot of times when you go to the store and you're like, wow, this t-shirt's so soft, it's amazing. And it's not soft because the cotton is high quality. It's soft
Yeah.
because there's a chemical process that they do on clothing that, from what I understand, it's like this liquid kind of chemical rinse that basically embeds the cotton with some sort of synthetic, like almost like a plastic synthetic chemical that makes the shirt feel super soft. So when you're
Yeah.
when you're at the store and you're like, wow, this is so luxurious, I can't believe it's so cheap, it's because it's been treated with these chemicals.
Yeah. Plastic. I forget what it's called, but it's plastic something. And then there's also a silicone version of it. Um, if you get like a t-shirt, for example, that has like a vintage wash to it, it's been through all kinds of different acids. Like all of these, if yeah, like you're saying, like if a t-shirt feels like incredibly soft, it's because it's coated in plastic for the most part,
Yeah.
or of silicone or something like this. Um, what I was gonna say though is I think that's something that's a little harder to discern for the common person. So I kind of, and I mean common person, like somebody who isn't like you and me who has been in these facilities, but the more important thing that I try to steer people away from is synthetic material, like synthetic fabrics, like polyester, viscose, nylon, acrylics,
Lululemon.
yeah, spandex.
I mean, I see, by the way, I see, in LA, every woman wears, these Lululemon sort of, spandex synthetic pants. And all I can think about is like cancer. Like you're getting that, all of that toxicity is just absorbing into your body. And also like probably changing your hormones, probably change it. It's just like, if not only that, but I mean, just the pants themselves are just so vulgar for, I think, women to wear to wear in public, because they're just vulgar. But
Yeah, they leave
no
nothing to the
modesty.
imagination.
Yes. So anyway, go ahead, finish what you were saying.
Yeah, so those fabrics are made out of either plastic or petroleum byproduct, and they are incredibly disruptive to your hormones, and they are often dyed with chemicals as well, or given a chemical like topical treatment to make them feel a different way. But the issue with like something like leggings or compression shorts or even like synthetic underwear in general is that it's directly touching your reproductive organs, which are extremely susceptible
Sensitive.
to chemicals and highly absorbent. So like the most absorbent places on your body would be obviously your mouth, but your armpits and your groin area. So these chemicals are just rubbing up against you all day. You're sweating in them. They're getting wet. They're rubbing off on you. That's getting into your body and it's disrupting the way that your body is meant to function. And again, it's just reworking of stuff that already is perfectly acceptable. Like we're talking about yoga pants. Like I don't know, you could use wool. I've seen wool for that, but you don't really need to be wearing those. You
You
can
could just
get
wear cotton pant, like cotton
yeah.
sweatpants, you know.
Yeah, like for example, at the gym, everybody at the gym is always following some kind of fitness aesthetics trend. And right now for girls, it's obviously like 100% shapewear, and that's all spandex or whatever. And then for guys, it's like synthetic moisture wicking shorts with compression shorts underneath. And the big like misnomer or lie about the benefits of polyester, how it's more sweat wicking or it's like an active wear fabric, these are all just marketing words. Like they're not actually true. I don't know how many of the listeners will have experienced this, but if you do like a heavy exercise in some kind of like polyester fabric and it gets drenched in sweat, if you were to leave that in your dirty hamper, it would just make your entire room smell awful because it absorbs and traps the sweat. It doesn't actually wick it away from your body. It's just more of a sponge. Whereas something like cotton, which is what I wear to the gym, it's just cheap and effective. It actually it has breathability to it. It allows the moisture to dry. It allows air to be flowing, and it's non-toxic. It works better than this stuff that they've labeled like, performance apparel or whatever. And the polyester stuff doesn't just apply to, workout clothing or yoga pants or anything. If you check the fabric content of the shirt that you're wearing, like for example, this is a linen shirt, but right here there's a little care label.
Yeah.
And on this label, it will tell you this one says 100% linen. So if you're ever curious about what the fabric composition of your clothing is, every piece of clothing has that little label and it will tell you. And again, I'm not saying go through your closet and throw away everything
Yeah.
that you have. But if you're at a store and you're like, oh, that shirt looks nice or those pants look nice, just read the care label. And if it's made out of something that you can't pronounce or something like polyester, it's probably better that you don't bring that into your house. Continue to bring that stuff into your house.
Yeah, and so
That's,
even a lot of shirts, dress shirts and pants now have like 2% elastane in them,
yeah.
which is also probably not that great for you. So even just just looking at the care label and seeing like, okay, is this 100% cotton or is there like a sneaky 1% whatever is
Yeah. I mean,
uh
it's all
go
about
ahead.
weighing the pros and cons too. I would rather somebody wear a 98% cotton, 2% like spandex piece of clothing than a 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. There's degrees of evil. um okay, so let's talk about the kitchen. Uh I I think years ago I started to realize what microwaves were all about, and I threw mine away because they're completely insane. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think microwaves change the it changes the chemistry or whatever in your food. So it somehow, and also it probably kills any kind of health benefit that the food has for you or partially kills it. I'm not sure exactly, but talk about microwaves and like non-stick pans and that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, another thing with microwaves is the way that they work is with microwaves, they vibrate the molecules of the food
That's what I meant, molecules. Yeah.
so intensely that they create friction with one another, and that's how it heats it up. Now, I'm not a scientist. I I don't know exactly the one thing that microwaves are doing that you should avoid. I think some of it, some of the reason I don't use them is because, like you're saying, it kills the nutrition of the food. But my grandpa was an electrician, and he would always tell us, like, we don't need to use the microwave for everything. Like, it's not good to be near the microwave when it's on. And like, whatever you do, don't stand directly in front of it when it's on. Like, don't watch the food. Like, just start it and like go do something else. And this is coming from a guy who's like spending his whole life around electronics, and he understands like what things to avoid. So we don't have one in my house. Anything that we need to heat up, we just use either a little countertop steel air fryer, or the oven, or a pan. Again, like, all of these things are just as easy to use and work just as effectively. But in the name of convenience, we've been sold these like giant boxes that emit radiation into our houses. So
Yeah, and what about non-stick pans?
yeah, so nonstick pans are coated in Teflon, which are extremely toxic, are really dangerous and harmful to your hormones, especially when they start breaking down from you like scraping at them all the time. But basically, the army invented a new coating for their tanks to make them waterproof in, I believe, World War II. And they were like, how can we make more of this stuff? How can we make money off of this? So they were like, oh, we'll just coat all of the cookware in Teflon and tell people that it's non-stick now, because it doesn't allow your food to stick, which is not entirely true, because I've had many conversations with people that are frustrated, like, oh, I got this non-stick pan, and every non-stick pan I try, it always sticks. But the company that created Teflon, basically everybody that worked on that factory line got cancer. And they eventually, I'm pretty sure it was World War II, but they had women like in the factories still, but they eventually um completely fired and like got rid of all the women on the production line of Teflon, because they were all getting pregnant and having significant birth defects and problems of their own, like miscarriages and such. So it's just one of these things that's sold to us as convenience, but it's full of dangerous chemicals that you should not be ingesting. And the fact of the matter is, like, you are ingesting them when you cook on them. And it's a matter of time until those chemicals start creating a multitude of problems in your body, whether it's, in your organs or with your hormones. So that for the kitchen, I think, is like the number one thing
But what about
that,
what about the non-stick pans that you see online that say like BPO whatever? There's some P something free. They're free of some. What is that like a just a marketing thing?
yeah. So BPA is bipolyphenol A, I think is what it's called. It's one of the ingredients that they can use to make plastic. And I say can because it's not the only one. So if you see like a plastic cup and it says BPA free, that doesn't mean it doesn't have BPS or BPF or like 10 different other polymers
Hmm.
that it's made out of. And they're all just as dangerous as BPA. They all leach plastics. They all are made from petroleum. They all hurt your hormones and your health in general. But the branding tactic is, oh, if we say it's BPA free, which is like something that we're putting out here, like, this one's the bad one, guys. Like, we got rid of the bad one, but it's just as bad as the rest of the stuff that's in it. It's
Yeah.
just that instead of using BPA now, they're using BPS or BPF or a combination of both. So it's
And by
really
the
just,
way, you can, I mean, talk about this for a second because like if I have an all clad frying pan and I want to fry an egg in it, there's a way to make it pretty much nonstick by heat. I think you heat up the pan. How do you do it? You heat up the pan and then pour the olive oil in it and then kind of let it.
Yeah. So stainless steel is something that I recommend because it's non-toxic, but a lot of people find it hard to use because for some reason there's like not a lot of information, or like people's family members haven't been using them for so long that we forgot how to use them. But basically, you want to heat up the pan first and you want to heat it up pretty hot. Like if you pour water on it and it steams, that's still not hot enough. You need to basically like, sprinkle a little water on it until the water is like balling up.
Yeah.
It's hard to explain, but it'll turn into these little beads of water
Right.
instead of steaming. And when it's that hot, then you can put olive oil on it and then you can cook, and it's basically a non-stick surface. The issue that causes the pan to stick is like not using oil or not heating it up hot enough. So again, it's mainly user error, but the pan itself is like, every high-end restaurant is going to be using like a stainless steel
Yeah.
pan in their kitchen, and it's because those people went to culinary school and learned how to use the tool.
Right.
But instead of telling us how to use that or making it clearer, they're like, oh, well, here's this thing where you don't have to think about anything at all and you just use it and there's no problems. But we forgot to mention that it's extremely poisonous at the same time.
Yeah. Okay. So the the last question is or the last kind of topic I want to talk about briefly is food, processed food. Um, you know, when as I mentioned before, when I first moved to LA, I didn't really think about food. I didn't I didn't think about what I was putting in my body. I just ate whatever. And when I first moved here, I worked in Beverly Hills for like a year. And and the first Whole Foods in California, I think it was the first Whole Foods in California, was in Beverly Hills. So every day after work, I would go to Whole Foods. Not that Whole Foods is great anymore, but there are still good things about it. But Amazon took over. Uh, but I used to go to Whole Foods after work every day, and I would kind of notice things like, oh, like that's organic and that doesn't have preservatives in it, and wait, that must be better. And I eventually kind of became awake about foods and how toxic foods are, and even like foods that you wouldn't even imagine are toxic, like crackers or whatever, that are baked in seed oils, which we can talk about, rather than olive oil. But so talk about processed foods and what what we should know about that.
Yeah, so you kind of touched on it, but there's preservatives and synthetic ingredients in most processed foods. And generally, instead of using good and beneficial oils like olive oil or tallow, they use canola oil or other vegetable or seed oils. And these seed oils are extremely inflammatory. They stay in your body up to 4 years. They cause all kinds of problems and are stored in your body as fat that your body doesn't want to use. So if you were eating, all clean, all organic, and you were eating healthy fats, when you ran out of sugar for your body to process as energy, it would burn the fat store away and you would lose that weight. But the seed oil comes into your body and it's just stored there, and your body doesn't want to use it because it's basically poison. So you just hold on to this weight, and you can eventually like get rid of it and detox yourself from it, but it messes with your digestion. It messes with your fat stores. It causes all kinds of inflammatory problems like skin issues and um, even hormonal issues too. But yeah, all processed foods, they're made months prior to you seeing them. They need preservatives so that they last long enough to get onto the shelf and into your house and onto your shelf. So they have to be filled with all these things that aren't going to break down over time. Like I've worked on a a food product and have found that when you use 100% natural stuff, like the timeline just shrinks incredibly because natural things naturally decompose or break down over time. So all these processed foods have synthetic ingredients and chemicals in them to stabilize them on the shelf for as long as possible. So they last long enough to get to you. And basically, if you want to avoid processed foods, all you need to do is when you go into the grocery store, just walk around the outside of all the shelves where you'll have, the vegetables and the fruit, the eggs and the milk and the cheese and the meat, whatever your grocery store looks like. The edges, the exterior walls of the grocery store are really the only place that you should be shopping. They're the stuff on the inside, on the middle, and on the end caps is all processed, and almost none of it is good for you. In the example of the crackers, you know, people wonder why they have a gluten intolerance, why they can't digest wheat or grains. And it's not because of the plant or the wheat or the grains. People have been eating bread for centuries. It's
Yeah.
because they're spraying these plants with glyphosate, which is a weed killer, which is extremely toxic to humans and all living things for that matter. And that is being sprayed onto the plants so that bugs don't get to the crops, so that the farmer and the company make more money. But it's poison. So you're eating that bread product and it's been doused in weed killer and it's affecting your gut in a way that your body's reacting to it like it's reacting to poison because it is.
Yeah.
And then you're wondering why you can't eat bread. And
Yeah.
then you go to say like Paris for vacation or something and you eat like 10 baguettes a day and
I
you
know.
feel incredible because they're not spraying their bread with glyphosate.
I know. It's funny because I got really sick in like 2000, I forgot when it was, 2005 or 4. And I it was like I couldn't eat anything like bread or whatever. And then I later on I went to Paris and I was shocked because I was literally eating baguettes all day and I felt totally fine. And I was like, wait, this is so strange. But yeah, I mean, basically, um, uh, what's it called when you can't eat bread? What's it called again? Um,
Gluten intolerance?
yeah, gluten free. That whole idea is no one is really gluten intolerant or lactose intolerant. This is all come about because of modern technology, because of homogenization and pasteurization of milk. If you drink raw milk, you will never be lactose intolerant because in the raw milk, all of the probiotics are preserved, all the enzymes are preserved in that milk. They're there and they help break down the milk.
Yeah.
So if you're buying, I mean, people think they're lactose intolerant, but they're actually just intolerant to the the way that the milk is processed or the food is or the bread is processed or treated. So I always say, and people think like, oh, you eat organic only, that's so snobby or whatever. It's like, no, everyone from the 18th century till the beginning of time only ate organic food. Like that's how humans existed. They only ate organic. There was no processing. So anyway, that's my my rant. Are there any final words of wisdom from you? I mean,
Um,
I think we should just reiterate that don't be overwhelmed by all this and just kind of
yeah.
take it one step at a time and get this book Toxic: A Comprehensive Guide to a Healthier Home because it's very simple. It's a very short read. It's very simple and it's It's so helpful. And you can just, read one chapter and then kind of implement that in your life and then move on.
Yeah, I mentioned this in the book, but I kind of laid the chapters out in a way that I think mo in the order most people should address these things.
In the order of importance. Yeah.
Yeah, but at the same time, like I mentioned previously, if you feel like there's something that you need to take care of, then just skip to that chapter and deal with it. And then when you're done with that, move on to the next one. I am always telling people on my Instagram or when I talk to them, don't try to do everything at once because you'll get overwhelmed and you'll get depressed about how, like, quote unquote bad things really are, and you'll give up. But if you just take it little by little and you just stop bringing things into your house, you start reading labels and you start being curious about the things that you're buying, you'll make a positive difference in the long run. And all of this, like eating organic or buying different products or making your own laundry detergent, it's all coming from a place like, I want you to be healthy. I want you to save money. I want you to be aware of positive alternatives. And I don't want you spending unnecessary amounts of money at the hospital at the end of your life because
Yeah.
you didn't make a change, you know?
Or at the middle of your life. So,
Yeah, true.
Josh, how can people? So, the book again, guys, is Toxic, a comprehensive guide to a healthier home. Where can people find the book and where can people find you?
The book is on Amazon. There is a paperback version, a Kindle version, and an audiobook version. And
Did you read the audio? Did you do the
no,
audio?
a friend of mine who is a very talented audiobook
Voiceover guy.
voiceover, yeah, it's really fun. I think there is a preview on Audible. Definitely give it a listen. Otherwise, you can find me on Instagram. That's my main mode of communication at Healthy Home Josh. I am every day posting new information, so I think it's worth a follow. And I have a private group also called the Healthy Home Alliance that is a paid membership group, but it's basically for the people that don't have time to read the book and don't have time to be doing research themselves. Come into the group, tell us what your problems are. I will give solutions. Other people who have dealt with things will give solutions. And there's already a huge catalog of different topics that we've been talking about, specific product recommendations. And I'm going to be putting a sort of like 101 course in there probably in the next couple of weeks. So
Nice.
that's something I'm really proud of. And I think will be really beneficial, especially for people that don't have time to be doing all the research themselves.
Love it. Okay. And we'll obviously link all that stuff, all that information below. So, Josh, thank you for being on the Becket Cook Show.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. It's an honor.
All right, guys, we will see you next time. Thank you.